Well, hello, gorgeous soul, and welcome to Art and Cocktails. Today, I'm really excited to talk about something that I've been discovering in my own life, in the life of my clients, and in the community. For those of you who don't know, I actually ended up graduating with a psych minor from college while I was pursuing my art degree. And later on, when I became a certified master coach, all of that knowledge and all of those terms and experiences and research have actually come in really, really handy, and it all came full circle. I was always really fascinated about helping people and serving them in some way, whether it was through healing or through career tips. And when it came to be an opportunity for me to be a coach, I knew it was the right move, not only based on my art career, but also just in terms of like life and mindset coaching. And one of the most fascinating things in my life that I love to observe as someone who's so passionate and so goal-driven, I'm a Sagittarius, so to me, I get a high off achieving a goal, right? Let me know in the comments if you can relate to this. I love experiencing life to the fullest. I love adventures. I love travel. I love to use my gifts and talents. And so one of the most fascinating things to me is when people are not as excited about pursuing their dreams. And today I want to talk about something called secondary gain and or hidden benefits. So this is a term that basically describes how we may have an actual hidden benefit when we don't do something or we do something. And one of the most common examples of that is people trying to quit smoking. So for example, someone might have a really hard time, other than the physical addiction, quitting smoking because they have it in their mind that someone said that they're going to gain a lot of weight when they quit smoking. So they continue smoking because they're worried that they're going to gain weight, making them unhealthy in that way. So that might be an example of secondary gain. Now, for me in my life, this has manifested in many, many ways. When it comes to growing my business and experiencing success, the way that secondary gain might come into play is, for example, if you're taking up space, your audience is growing, maybe you're making sales and you're making more money than you've ever made in your life, maybe a part of you starts to worry that the people who were in your life, growing up with you, supporting you, or going to school with you, maybe they're not going to love you anymore if you become too successful or different from them. So I want to highlight that because this can bring awareness to an area of your life where you might feel stuck and you might feel like, why can't I make progress on this? Why am I continuing going back to an old pattern or an old behavior that I just can't seem to kick, or a certain situation just keeps reoccurring? Well, it might be because subconsciously you think, A, something bad is going to happen, or someone might stop loving you or respecting you, or another reason why it might not work for you or it might make your life worse, right? Because the primary focus of our subconscious mind and our nervous system is to keep us safe. So it will signal to us when things don't feel safe. And we do this in many areas. It's not just about money or career. We do this with our health as well. So for example, when I was temporarily experimenting with going vegan, I remember I had a lot of reservations about being able to enjoy time with friends at a restaurant. And I felt really limited by this idea that I'm not going to be a part of the group. So subconsciously, I felt like I was kicked out of the tribe, so to say, and I wasn't going to have the same meaningful connection as I did before, which then eventually did not help me become a vegan. This morning, as I was driving to the studio, I actually asked a question on my Instagram to my followers, and I said, hey, what is currently holding you back from going all in your creative business? And the response I got was actually really, really interesting. So most people answered that they're not able to go all in on their dream because of money. And I thought that was really interesting because my question did not say anything about investing in yourself or buying something or renting something. It was just a mindset question about fully committing and doing everything we can with the time we have. But it was also really valuable to see that a lot of the fears we have are based on assumptions to how much money we need to have, maybe the way that we have to look a certain way, and any other things that we believe or the story we're telling ourselves that may not help us become successful. So just to quickly touch on that, this isn't really about money, but I will say that I started with nothing. I could barely afford buying a website domain. And back in the day, my first website was through Weebly, which I think was $20 a month. And to me, that was an exorbitant amount of money. My first investment was into a logo, which I paid around $300 for. And that was also extremely expensive for me at the time. But I remember just listening to those internal nudges. And even though I didn't have a lot of money or resources, what I had was grit, willingness to show up. I had creativity, and I had a passion, and I had a big dream. So with those things, I know it seems really idealistic, but those things can get you very far. You can meet people when you're able to be gritty and to show up. Now, another response that came through this survey that I did on Insta Stories is that people said that they were worried about burning out and working too hard, and that could be really hard on their health. Maybe they have a chronic condition and they can't work a certain amount of hours. And hey, I totally get it. Even though I can't relate with any kind of chronic illness, when I first started, I had this belief that I had to work really, really hard and burn out and hustle and grind. And that was the only way I would be able to be worthy of my success. Now, I'm not saying that it's not going to take any work. Obviously, a time commitment and consistency are important. But what I will say is scientific research proves that we only need 4 focused hours a day to truly, that's the prime amount of time that our brain works. And so I learned this from Marie Forleo. There's other research. There's people who advocate for a 4-hour work day or a 4-day work week. There's all kinds of variations of this. But the premise of this research is to show that maybe in this capitalist society, working more and being more productive is valued. But from a scientific perspective, in terms of producing good quality, it's not necessary to burn out. So if you're worried about pursuing your dreams, being a professional artist, entrepreneur, writer, this doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice your physical and mental health. You can obviously budget and create a life on your own terms, which is what's so, so important. And if you have any reservations or thoughts like, well, I can't create a life on my terms because I got to pay the bills. Well, the thing is, there's so many ways to make money. There's digital products and income streams, and I talk about this on this channel and on my podcast. So listen to those episodes and get inspired, because you don't have to grind in order to continually bringing in a revenue. And I strongly believe in that, because the reason why I'm sharing that is because I did grind and I did sacrifice a lot, and it wasn't really necessarily useful. It didn't get me further than being mindful, focusing for a certain amount of hours, and then moving on and enjoying my life. Because most of us aren't chasing our dream so we can just work forever. Most of us are chasing our dream to express ourselves, to connect with others, and have more freedom of time and money, right? So I want you to really think about what is a secondary gain that might be holding you back right now. Maybe it's a fear that if you become too successful or have too many followers, your friends will judge you, right? Or maybe you have a family situation where if you make a certain amount of money, you know someone's going to come knocking and ask you for help, and you are such a generous person, you're probably going to give all of it away. Hey, I've been there, and there's nothing wrong with helping our family and also helping ourselves, and knowing that it's not about being a martyr. It's not about sacrificing everything. It's about putting on your oxygen mask first, filling up your own cup first, and then from that place of overflow, helping those around us, okay? So there are so many ways that we can self-sabotage, because we think that by playing small or preventing taking action on something that we actually really want, like success or improving our financial situation or improving our health, there might be stories we're telling ourselves that if we do that thing, we're not going to be loved anymore, right? It's always much deeper and way more complicated than just a surface level, like, oh, it's never about laziness. Very rarely is it because you're lazy or because you're not motivated. It's usually because there's either a deep fear, a deep limiting belief, or an embedded story that you're telling yourself that something negative will happen and your quality of life will actually diminish. So I encourage you, if you feel like this is you and this is speaking to you, maybe you keep holding yourself back from sharing something online or putting out that painting and submitting it places, or even opening up your own shop, I encourage you to really just listen to your thoughts. The way that I do this is either journaling. So I ask myself, what is coming up for me? What am I afraid of? What would I do if this fear was not in the way? If fear wasn't an issue, if fear wasn't in the way, would I want to do this? Usually the answer is yes. I also like to leave my phone at home and go for a walk and just listen to my intuition, listen to spirit, universe, however you connect with the greater force that is in our planet. And I just like to listen. Making space for thinking and listening can be really, really profound. And also having supportive friends. I have a group chat with my girlfriends, and sometimes I'll tell them I'm feeling really bummed out about this launch that I just had. I just feel so discouraged. And they'll call me out, and they'll gently remind me of who I am and that I'm basically telling lies to myself, and I need to keep going and try something different. So those are the 3 tips that I have. And honestly, sometimes those issues or those deep-rooted beliefs are pretty sticky. So be gentle with yourself. Some of them might come up again and again, but that doesn't mean we give up and just surrender to them. If you want a better life, if you want something that you've been dreaming of, and this story keeps getting in your way and telling you that it's not good, or people are going to leave you, or you're going to become a sellout and lose respect, like whatever those deep stories that might not even be conscious are, identify them and just befriend them. You don't need to squish them. This isn't an aggressive thing. They're there to protect you. They're actually they think they're doing you a favor, but you can start communicating to them and saying, hey, thank you so much for protecting me for worrying about this thing, this part of my life, this part of my business. Actually, I'm okay. This is really safe for me to try, and it's going to improve our life in the long run. I'm going to include an article about secondary gain from Psychology Today in the notes below, so check that out if you want to learn more, and I look forward to connecting with you on future episodes.